Just what you are. I think I've been talking to you. And you started it's
Good evening, everyone. For those of you who I haven't met, I'm Rabbi Cantor Jeremy Gimbel. And John is quite literally the reason why I'm a rabbi or a cantor. I know so many of us have had incredible memories with John and Susan throughout our lives. And this evening we'll have an opportunity to share some of those stories. What's most important, though, are not just the stories that we share here in this room, whether it is tonight or tomorrow night, but in truth, they are the stories that we will be sharing in the days and weeks and months and years to come. So when a story, memory, comes into your mind, call up Susan. Call up another member of the family. Call up a friend and share that story. We'll begin with singing the words of Hine Matov U'Mana'im Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. What's brilliant, I'm not going to give you a page number for that because I know my people. The brilliance of the psalm, though, it translates to Hine Matov U'Mana'im, how good, how pleasant it is, Shevet Achim Gam Yachad, when we can sit together. Now, we often sing it joyously. If you think about so many of the melodies and the settings that we use, they're generally fairly upbeat. But there's a brilliance in the psalm that goes unnoticed often. The psalmist does not tell us why we have gathered, only that we have gathered. And that when the happy times occur, it's good for us to gather. When the sad times of our lives exist as they inevitably do, then too, it is good to gather. And so we join together. Hine Matov U'Mana'im Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. Hine Matov U'Mana'im Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. Hine Matov Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. Hine Matov Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. Hine Matov U'Mana'im Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. Hine Matov U'Mana'im Shevet Achim Gam Yachad. Page 28A. Mizmor David Adonai Rohi Roechsar Binot Deshe Yarbitzeni Al Memenufot Yinaleini
שובב, ינחני במעגלי צדק למען שמו. גם כי אלך בגיא צר מוות, לא ירא כי אתה עמדי. שבטך ומשענתך המה ינחמוני. תערוך לפני שולחן נגד צורריי. דשנת בשמן ראשי כוסי רוויה, אך טוב וחסד ירדפוני כל ימי חיי. שבתי בבית אדוני לאורך ימים.
Together. A Psalm of David. Adonai is my shepherd, I am complete. In lush meadows you let me lie down. Alongside tranquil waters you lead me. You restore my life. You guide me in paths of righteousness for the sake of your name. Even when I walk through the valley of deep darkness, I fear no harm, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they reassure me. You set a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. Wine brims over my cup. Indeed, goodness and steadfast love shall pursue me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of Adonai as long as I live. Page 29a. Birth is a beginning and death a destination. And life is a journey, from childhood to maturity and youth to age, from innocence to awareness and ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion and then perhaps to wisdom, from weakness to strength or strength to weakness and often back again, from health to sickness and back we pray to health again, from offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion, from grief to understanding, from fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat, until looking backward or ahead, we see that victory lies not at some high place along the way, but in having made the journey, stage by stage, a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning, and death a destination. But life is a journey, from birth to death to life everlasting. This time, we'd like to open to some stories, some remembrances of John's life.
We are here to celebrate and mourn the life of Jonathan Stein. My name is Lev. And to me, John is my grandpa, or as I call him, my geepa. This is a name that I gave to him as a young kid, not being able to pronounce the word grandpa. The name stuck as he grew closer to death, and I visited him in his hospital bed. I really learned how much he impacted the lives of all of you, so many people. However, he wasn't just a rabbi to me. He was so different. He was, as well as my teacher, my role model, and my supporter, he was my grandpa. He was way too adventurous for a grandpa. He was always eager to tackle me and my brother in the pool, or take me on roller coasters with his bad back. He saw life in such a bright sense, and was always excited to explore and to try new things. When I think of my childhood and think about who I am, Geepaw pops right up into my mind. He did such an amazing job as my Geepaw. I will cherish him forever, and he is someone that I dream to be like one day. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Shai. I'm the youngest of the grandkids. A lot of you know my grandfather as a friend, as a rabbi, or as family. I've always known him as my grandpa. When I think of my Geepa, I always think of one thing, his smile. Geepa always lit up the room with his smile, and he always knew how to make me laugh. I'll always remember him in an amazing way because of the joy he brought to myself and so many others. On top of this, he was a really amazing grandpa, and is someone who I've continued to learn and grow from. And most of the time, he was an amazing role model to grow up around, always showing me right from wrong. He really guided me and helped me become a better person. Thank you.
Okay, this is Leah, the granddaughter, Rachel's daughter, and we just, when was it? Oh, over Father's Day, we put together a list of all the things that the grandchildren loved about Geepa, and Leah's going to read that to you. Ready?
Test.
Yes.
All the things we love about Geepa with the penguin and the O.
Yep.
Your generosity, your constant pursuit of the latest technology. Your love of penguins and your love of Judaism. Your love of Amos and your love of your daughters and son-in-law. Your infinite love of your grandchildren. Your fups as a sign of affection. Your curiosity, your sense of humor, your passion for learning, your principled leadership, your love of gadgets, your devotion to our ancestry, your love of travel, your love of roller coasters, your hot tub chats with us, your interactive seders, your editing skills, your stage of life, your deep friendships, your ability to embrace your inner child, your perseverance, your love of reading, your unwavering support, your adventurous spirit, your June Shabbat celebrations, your dedication to family, your important role as our patriarch.
Beautiful.
Hello, those of you who do not know me, I am Jonathan Stein's older grandson, and I have a few words to say about Geepa myself. Geepa, we made a huge difference with you. One memory that I enjoyed was when you lived in New York City, riding the bus and the subway all the time and going places. I also remember you would let me eat all the junk food I want, whenever I want. You were the person who encouraged me to try new things, such as go on a water slide by myself without any help, and the courage you had to get me to keep going. I loved growing up with you, going to many Seders. I loved having you as my mentor. I was lucky to have you as my grandfather and to be your firstborn grandson. I will miss you now and forever. I love you, and I am always thinking about you. Thank you.
For those of you who don't know me, my name is Matt Colvin, and I had the privilege of being John's son-in-law. I want to thank you all for coming tonight to the Shiva and to honor and remember John, a remarkable man who touched so many lives in countless ways. John wore many hats. Kippot?
Yeah. Keep out. Yeah.
John wore many hats, kippot, in life. Rabbi, son, father, husband, grandfather, brother, uncle, and so much more. John dedicated his life to serving Jewish communities in Indianapolis, San Diego, and New York, where his wisdom, compassion, and deep faith inspired so many. He wasn't just a spiritual leader, he was a builder of connections, an educator, a mentor, and a source of encouragement to all who knew him. At the heart of John's life was his family. He was a devoted and loving husband to Susan, his partner in life and love. Together they built a family grounded in the importance of being together. As a father, he was a source of guidance and strength to Rachel and Jessica, instilling in them the values that will carry forward for generations. John was always Jessica's first phone call when she had a work-related question that needed a new and fresh perspective. And as a grandfather to Andrew, Leah, Lev, and Shai, John brought endless love, laughter, fuss, and pride into their lives. John's love of family extended beyond the present to the past. He and Susan hired a genealogist to investigate both sides of their family tree, compiling detailed information and acquired specific documents from their history. John subscribed to the belief that understanding the past was essential for making wise decisions for the future. This passion for family history was yet another way John demonstrated his deep commitment to preserving and honoring his family's legacy. John also loved to share his curiosity with others, often through magazine subscriptions. Consumer Reports has been arriving to our house like clockwork every month for over 20 years. And Jess and I certainly have never subscribed. But John would send it just in case we might need it. He sent National Geographic Kids to Lev and Shai, and made sure that that monthly New York Times for Kids always found its way into our mailbox for the past several years. These weren't just gifts. They were an extension of John's belief in the importance of lifelong learning and exploration. When Susan and John lived in New York, I cherished every visit. It's so much fun to experience New York, not having to stay in a hotel, but in a house. Our time together revolved around meals at some of their favorite restaurants like EJ's, JG Mellon, Pastrami Queen, Szechuan Palace, just to name a few. And late at night, John and I would take walks from East 79th Street to the Apple Store in Central Park. And he would always light up when we got there, proudly showing off the store, packed with people even at 1 a.m. John delighted in sharing these small moments, showcasing his pride in the world around. John's love of curiosity and learning was at the core of his remarkable ability to connect with others. John asked questions, not just to make conversation, but because he was genuinely interested in people, their stories, and their perspectives. This openness allowed him to build relationships that were meaningful and enduring. Tonight, as we remember and continue to try to say goodbye to a truly remarkable man whose legacy lives on in the one live on in the love he shared, the lessons he taught, and the countless lives he touched. John taught me to lead with kindness, to value connection, to honor our past, and embrace the future with enthusiasm and curiosity. Thank you, John. Thank you for everything you've given all of us. Thank you for your wisdom, your humor, your love, and your adventurous spirit. May we honor you by living with that same unapologetic curiosity, unbelievable generosity, unwavering commitment to being a lifelong learner, and that in the end, there's simply nothing more important than family. Rest in peace, Rabbi Stein. May your memory now, always, and forever be a blessing.
Beautiful.
Well, I met John Stein 36 years ago, and my wife, you've heard her name yesterday, costs money. I'm going to tell you guys some things that I've learned in 36 years of knowing John Stein. I learned some acronyms. MYA. That's generally directed to everybody, and it's intended to tell people that it's time to move your... That is not to be confused with AMT, which is also moving time. I learned when they lived in Caminito Tirbeso that the gate opens toward you. I've learned that because I was told that many times because they thought maybe I might have forgotten it and I might accidentally damage their car when we were driving to whatever destination we were going to. The other thing you might not know is that it's all in the same county in San Diego. And I've learned that because we have probably experienced all of those trips to Julian, to you have to forgive me because I'm the visiting team here. But we've been through it all. I want to thank John because he invited me into his family 36 years ago. He didn't have any choice with these guys, but he took us in with open arms, and I am grateful for the time that we spent. One of the most enjoyable calls that I made is when my son was born, and I think he was teaching a Hebrew intensive class, and I could hear on the other side when I said it was a boy, and then I couldn't hear anything else. They made countless trips to Rochester, New York, anytime that they could, even when his health didn't necessarily allow for that. He worked hard. We've all heard the stories about all of the people that he's touched, me included. He was always available to me, always interested in the family. We would have weekly Zoom Shabbats where he would always ask, my kids, what are you doing? How's the job? What's going on? And then we would have a negotiation over the length of the kiddush that we were going to have, whether it would be short or long. And I would always tell my daughter, just say short, whatever. And once in a while he would humor us. But I was privileged to be able to talk to him 3 weeks ago on Friday and to tell him what he meant to us. And I'm grateful for that opportunity. The Talmud says that You're not obligated to complete the impossible, but you're not free to walk away from the task. And we all heard all of the things that he's done. He has certainly done the work. And I will tell you, John, on behalf of that we will continue to watch over Rachel and Jessica and Susan, and you can rest easy. We've got them here. Thank you, John.
Beautiful. Thank you.
So as we open to others to share stories, there's one more. And as she's making her way up, I just want to acknowledge that there are a small handful of rabbis in this room. You don't have to emulate us in the length of the stories that you share.
Hi, I'm Sally Bedrick, and Susan Stein is my sister, and I'm very proud to be her sister. This is from my husband, Alan. My husband, Alan, just had recent surgery and has been unable to make it here for the funeral this Shiva, but he wanted to write something about John. So here's what he has to say. I miss John. We saw each other at all family events, happy simchas and sad events too. Sally and I were privileged to have John co-officiate at our wedding in June 1975, which was his first official wedding after his rabbinic ordination. John and I often spoke closely at family get-togethers. He had a distinct advantage as a married into the Pollock family man. His relationship with Susan preceded mine with Sally by many years. He was voted into the family immediately. After all, he was a rabbi. My physician status went relatively unnoticed. Physicians are a dime a dozen, but not rabbis. I, on the other hand, endured years, even decades of voting, recalls, recounts, etc. regarding my family membership. Fortunately, John came to my rescue with Aunt Sherry and got me voted in, but only after speaking with Beverly and asking her if she could find 10 additional votes from the Georgia clan. John and I always spoke fondly of the family we married into, Sally and Susan, wonderfully close sisters. The entire Pollock clan was loving and caring. We talked about many, many topics, family, world affairs, financial issues, religious topics, our son's transition to traditional orthodoxy, and more. John's death was not fair, but no one says life is going to be fair. John leaves a wonderful legacy of family, career, friend, and colleague to many. I miss John.
Thank you.
All right, here I go. I won't be a rabbi, I promise you. I had the privilege of being the chair with Cy Coleman of the search committee. And I guess we were the first people in San Diego to meet John, to get to know him. I first met him through the written word. Each candidate had to send a number of sermons for the committee to read. I was on a flight going to France, and I brought the whole portfolio that was put together. I think we had 10 candidates, and each candidate wrote about 8 sermons. I read about 2 or 3 rabbi sermons, and I was falling asleep. My husband was already asleep, and I said, all right, I'll read one more, and then I'll go to sleep. And there it was, sermons by Jonathan Stein. I did not fall asleep. I was in awe. His sermons were so wonderful, so intellectual. I learned so much from his sermons that I went, George, wake up. Do you want to read the sermons of your next rabbi? And he looked at me and said, are you serious? But he did read them in the morning, and he did agree with me that he should be our next rabbi. Stein and I went to Indianapolis to meet with Jonathan and Susan. It was the coldest weekend in the history of Indianapolis. But we were so warm in the Stein household with their two lovely children. They were children at the time, and Susan. They made us feel so welcome. We went to all the services, Friday night services, Saturday services. Everyone wanted a piece of John and his congregation. The children were running up to him. The children were kissing him. The children loved him. The adults loved him. His adult classes were wonderful. He was such a wonderful rabbi that I think that this was the best thing I ever did during my presidency, was to bring John Stein to San Diego, and I know you all feel the same way.
Just a couple of notes to embellish my side of that search. I think it was late 1993 when the need for a new rabbi, I don't remember the reason, but we needed a new city rabbi. And I was out of the presidency for about 2.5 years. Not really active, and I said to Mary Ann I'd be happy to help in the search. And she asked me to be her co-chair. And when a congregation is looking for a new rabbi, the placement bureau of the UHC sends the first panel of candidates of rabbis who are looking for a new job. And they sent to Mary Ann and me, I think it was 10 or 12 resumes. And we got them a little bit in advance of the rest of the members of the committee, and I read them, not on a plane going to France. And when she got back, I called her and I said, you know, this is a rare admission, but the temple is in need of money. And I have a way that we can save some money. We don't have to have a full-scale search with payments for planes and hotels and interviews, because when you have finished reading the 12 resumes, we know who the next senior rabbi is going to be. And then we recognized that, in fairness to the congregation, we had to go through the motions and full scale, have interviews, because the congregation was owed that obligation. So we had the conclusion in our minds that John Stein was the next senior rabbi. But we did go back to Indianapolis. Unlike Mary Ann, I can tell you that it was January 19th, 1994. When it was 30 below zero. And I remember my Marine Corps background enabled me to walk from the hotel to get the car and tell Mary Ann to wait in the lobby. And when she saw me pull up, don't come out, wait for 10 more minutes for the heater to heat up the car. And when we parked at the various places where we had to go, I was afraid to turn off the engine. I said at the time that maybe the freezing weather was going to ultimately be a help to us, because we may not have to have a long, challenging, difficult negotiation. That the move to San Diego by Susan and John would be worth Who knows why? But it would make the task of bringing a contract to the fore a pleasure. And that was the beginning of a unique and wonderful friendship. And I think I knew, but I discovered more yesterday with the eulogies that despite his outstanding capabilities and record as a rabbi around the country, being a family man probably was at the top of his list of attributes, which I admire because family to me is most important. And that's my side of the story of a great search.
I always have to look at you because you know what story I'm going to tell. But there's more to it, I think, than what I've said before. Hi, I'm Jeff Myers, member of Beth Israel since 1999, when my family and I moved here, and joined Beth Israel because of the warmth that we've heard about and that you all know from Rabbi Stein and at that time Cantor, Arlene Bernstein. But I have a story that I like to tell. I've told it at least once before because I think it embodies not only our relationship but well, you'll hear it. So at that time, our daughter Becca was 3 years old, and she was very concerned about some of the floods that were happening in Colorado, some other place, some natural disasters. And after services, as was mentioned, John Stein and Arlene would come and sit on the steps of the old Beth Israel. Right? It was a receiving line for the kids, and they would rush up and hug, and it was just a very loving feeling throughout the entire congregation. And so my kids did the same. And so Becca, as a young 3-year-old, walled up and approached at that time Cantor Bernstein and asked why God would let such things happen. So RC immediately turned to Rabbi Stein and said, "Rabbi, little Becca has a question for you." And Rabbi Stein responded in his most avuncular, rabbinic way, with sympathetic feelings of hurt and pain. And that things happen sometimes beyond our human comprehension. Becca returned to Arlene and said, "Yeah, he doesn't know either." But I think that, and although that story, I guess, is mostly about Becca, I think it the other thing that I just learned tonight, and I'll add a couple more things, was his love of penguins. And I don't think we knew that. We have over 300 penguins in our house too, so we're definitely collectors. Not live penguins. Thank you for that clarification. But here in San Diego, I do like to say, it's a small, big town, and one of the things that we absolutely enjoyed and loved was seeing Susan and Jonathan in the theater. Just recently at the restaurant on El Cajon Boulevard. We just run into them everywhere, and the love and care and just warmth, right, that he emanated makes us feel so much more part of this congregation and of this city. And for us, he will always embody that warmth of Southern California and the hospitality that we felt here. So, thank you.
Thank you, John.
We're going to invite everyone to continue, as I mentioned, sharing these stories with the families with your friends. I'm sure there are stories that could be shared in the group and others that cannot. We turn to the words of El Male Rachamim, page 33a. I invite you to please rise. עם קדושים וזוהרים כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים את נשמת הרב אבא יעקב אברהם בן מיכאל אשר ופגל חנה שהלך לעולמו בעל הרחמים יסתירהו בסתר כנפיו לעולמים ויצרו בתור החיים את נשמתו אדוני הוא נחלתו וינוח בשלום על משכבו ונאמר together. God full of compassion, you dwell in the heights and in the depths. Grant perfect rest under the wings of your presence to John Stein, our loved one who has entered eternity. Let him find refuge forever in the shadow of your wings, and let his soul be bound up in the bond of eternal life. For you, the everlasting God, are his inheritance. May he rest in peace, and let us say, Amen. Page 34a, we turn to our mourner's Kaddish, led by our family. Yitgadal, Yitgadash, Shemei Rabbah, Ve'almad Yirach, Yirutei, V'yamlich Malchutei, V'chayekon, V'yomechon, V'chayei L'chol Beit Yisrael, V'agalah, V'zman Kariv, V'yimru, Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mevarach, Ve'alam U'lamei Amaya, Yitbarach, V'yishalach, V'yitpa'ar, V'yitroman, V'yitnaseh, V'yitadar, V'yitaleh, V'yitalal, Shnei D'Kusha, V'richu, Ve'ela Min Kol Birchata, V'shirata, V'shirata, V'nechemata, V'amiran Ve'alma, V'yimru, Amen. V'yidei Shlama Rabba Min Shemaya, V'chayim Adlin V'chol Yisrael, V'yimru, Amen. Oseh Shalom V'romah, Hu Yaseh Shalom, Aleinu V'chol Yisrael, V'yimru, Amen. May God grant peace to all who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved among us or wherever they may be, as together we say. Amen. Thank you for being here. I hope you'll be able to join us tomorrow as well. Thank you. We will be using our prayer books again tomorrow, so if you could collect them and put them in the boxes over here, we would appreciate it. Thank you. No. Are you going?
No, not at all.
Let me just turn the live stream off so you don't broadcast it to everyone.